Hello, in this video we're going to create animations inside the Stable Diffusion local installations with using DeForum. Before we start, let me show we have DeForum installed. You can go to your extension tab, and if you don't have a DeForum located and showing right in your extensions, you can go click on Available, click Load From, and after it's finished load, just type DeForum. Right now it doesn't show because I need uncheck install it, and mine is installed. In your case, its action will say install, so you just click on this and install it. After installation completed, you want to go to install it and click apply and restart. But because in this video we're going to take a step further from what we did before, and I'll put a link for you in a previous video we were using this, we're going to use the actual ControlNet with the DeForum. DeForum right now can support ControlNet from the inside, which is make it much more smoother and nicer animation. To be sure we have it as well, the ControlNet installed, we can same go to available and just type ControlNet. You'll notice, okay, let's see if we can find right here, should have ControlNet down there, right here. It says SD Web UI ControlNet. So just be sure you click and install it. Same way you want to go after apply and restart. And if you already have them installed, I highly recommend for you to go and click check for update. I do this almost every time when I restart my server or on a daily basis. And this is go over and verify it if all plugins or extensions we're going to use, they're up to date. If they're not up to date, you will have come up like menu, and you'll see right here it says new commit for the form and Dreambooth. So we don't go use a Dreambooth right now, but the forum we want it, and we want to go to click apply and restart. When you restart, sometimes you may have it something says error come up, and it's reason because the server on backend is still kind of relaunching. When you'll see it says running on local, it's meaning that is done. And all what we need to do is just reload it, refresh the page, and that should be fully working. After we install the extension for the ControlNet, we actually need to adjust or set specific configurations for this. So we'll go inside the settings. In the settings on your left side, we'll scroll down and we'll find ControlNet. Let's go ahead and click on that. Notice right here I set the ControlNet Max 3. It means it's allowed me 3 tabs. But this is option. The settings will affect text to image, image to image. And therefore, they have pre-default 5 tabs for the ControlNet. We can use it. But just in case till we here, be sure you have it your max model set to 3 and model cache size 3. I usually match them. Next, I want to be sure my version sets to 1.5 on SD. Okay, and as long we're looking on some settings, let's click on the DeForum, and in DeForum be sure your FFmpeg set on proper location, otherwise you will get it some errors when we start creating. I think we're ready right now, go inside the DeForum. I have it in a previous video when we gone over some settings. Just in case, I will refresh them. So in our first run tab, it's where we have it our sampler we're using. We also have it width, height, how many steps we're producing, and also place for the seed. Below we have it some batch processing, which we won't use in this video. In a keyframe, it's where we set our motions for the keyframes, where we also set the how many cadence or how many repetition frames we can have it. So in this value, what is meaning, it is between each frame can create one kind of like copy of the frame or blending frame. So it does not necessarily will process as the render AI, but it's more will take blending between 2 frames. Usually by default it says 2. If you want to render every frame, you can put it 1. I do not recommend go over 5, but just for fun, I was experimenting with some settings, and you'll see example. Right here, every 2 frames, so it was before, and you can notice where the head is rotating. And this was done with using ControlNet. It's what we're going to use to reference in the video. And in this one was using 10 frames. And you can see when I start progressing, the motion does not apply because it is too many frames need blend. It does change. You have a little bit better non-changing background versus this one. But the problem is then you don't have it motions. So you have it plus and minuses with this. You have it a little bit better standing together. But again, you don't have motions. We'll look on some of the settings shortly. So let's go ahead, go over them a little bit fast. Noise, it's how many will apply noise at the beginning, and you can have control to some of this point if you want a little bit more consistency. Same with coherency. Anti-blur, when it's a frame start kind of blending together, you will notice you will have a blur effect. So in this case, you can increase, and a value going here from 0 to 1. By default, it's lower. Normally, I will increase a little bit slightly higher, so maybe about 3 or 4. Okay, next we also have it warping. This is apply more to 3D, which we will use just 2D for these videos. We also have it our guide and CFG. The recommendations going from 6 to 9 for using with a DeForum. We have it our seed, subseed, amount of the steps, sampler, and if you need it, customize depending what sampler you want it per different frames. Same like you can switch to different checkpoints if you need it. For example, you can go from photorealistic to anime on a specific steps and change style all the way if you need to do this. We also have it our prompts. And prompts, you can see straight, it is what frame and what prompt should be applied in this frame. This is what loaded, it's a default with a DeForum, but we're going to modify. As well, you have it your negative prompts if you need it. There are image initializations if we need it, and of course we have it our ControlNet. So for this one, let's go just start using and create it. As we in ControlNet, what I want to do, I want to enable. Notice right here we have 5 ControlNet models. Even we set up 3 before in the settings, but settings will apply to text to image, image to image. Here we have preset 5. So when we click enable, it will take a little bit time to load it. So let's go ahead and click down, select one. I will go with a Canny preprocessor, and we also want to set Canny model for this. Also, we'll look on the bottom, we have a control mode, balance it. If you want priority prompt, I want to switch to ControlNet, more important, so it's more based on ControlNet in this case. And resize, we'll just keep it inner feed scale, or you can just resize, but we're going to with the same size as we have it before. So let's go just, for now, we'll go enable also our second model. And in second model, we're going to set this to, let's go open face, open pose face. Same, we're going to select for this, open pose for the model. Same things, we'll just set ControlNet is more important on this case. So if you notice in any of these areas like canning, we don't have an input on the image. However, if you're going with open face, you'll have it ControlNet, input, image, and path. And I'm just going to put a path to this test image that you can preview here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start creating animations with DeForum. When you're going to the DeForum tab, you'll notice you have it all these different tabs. We went over them in another video, but just in case if you missed that video, let me go very fast over them. We have the run, keyframes, prompt, initialization, ControlNet, hybrid, video, and output. We're going through all of them to set some settings, and as we're going along, I will try to explain. Keep in mind, this is quite a bit sophisticated, the extensions, so some of them will require a little bit more time to learn how they work. Don't get frustrated. In time, we'll go over them. So first, the Run tab, we have the very basic settings. We have our sampler, steps, width, height, and seed. Seed, it's in case we want to reuse similar look. Example, if we go to image and just type portraits of Cyberman, and we'll go ahead, click generate. You'll notice it will generate for us portrait. If we need it, we can go ahead and reuse its seed, copy of the seed if we like it how it's look. Otherwise, we can create more and more, but usually it's what happens. It's very nice to go and pre-render something and copy not exactly the same, but very similar settings inside our work. Notice in this case, you probably want to keep it sampling steps, CFG, height and width, similar settings copy inside the DeForum. But we'll just go use it straight from here without copying. This is just options, so it's what you can do. Same if you have it single frames, you can do same with image to image, just to be sure to see what result you will get it before you actually start animating. And this is very helpful. Okay, but this we used earlier. We have it 25 steps, have it as default. Width, I'm going with 768, so I want a little bit wider screen, a little bit more cinematic look in this case. If we won't go to use any seed, so it's a random seed. It's meaning every image will have a basic Perlin noise applied different on everyone. So this does not necessarily provide for us consistent, we'll have some change in details, but it's a good way to do in the next step to see how we can reduce some flickering by using here and create a little bit more consistency. Okay, let's go ahead in our keyframes. And keyframes, when it's open, notice we have additional tabs, and this is kind of keep it in mind that we have it also motion tab here. We'll look in a second. We also have it our additional string, CFG, seed, and all additional options. Usually keyframe, it's where you specify what you want change settings based it on the each different frame through the timeline of your animation. We're going to use a 2D, 3D, just add additional transformers, the Z vector for us. With 2D, we just only have X and Y. Okay, we'll just keep it on this. Next, cadence, it is how many blending happen per frame. So for example, if it's 2, it's meaning we render 1 frame, we render frame 3, and we'll create special blend between them. That will reduce time, how long it's taken, and also will create somewhat little bit more smoothness between those frames. However, be careful when you adjusting, because if you have too much of that value, you will start skipping some motion. So let me show you example. Right here, you can see this is animations we're going to use as a test. And here, example, we're just using 2 frames. Notice it does still kind of applied flickering, not flickering, but changing, and this is because not consistency in this case. And of course, if we have it, thus increased blending between frames, we'll have this problem when its motion does not translate it. You still can see some changes, how it's applied. It does keep it a little bit more consistency on the screen versus this one, but we don't track motion. So this is kind of need good balance between those values. And of course, between 2 or 3 will work very well in this case. Down below, okay, we have our string, the guidance where we said, with using different models will require different, same like with the form. And the form said between 6 to 9, it's very good level, so I will just leave it as a 7. The smaller number, the more closer will be to the text string. The bigger number, the more far away flexibility. Notice right here we have a 0 and column and 7. It's mean we can specify on a frame. So for example, you can say I want on the beginning be very close to my text, so I'll even put a 2 or 3. Then we can have a comma, and on a frame 60 we can say let's go with a 7 or more. So you can play around with the different settings, and this represent frame, column, and value. So but for our effect, we'll go to the 7 as default. Okay, we have it also, you can do with a seed, subseed, amount of the steps. Let's go back, and string, this is the frame influence on the string. So if you want a little bit heavier influence, you can increase. I will say by default, start with default and see if you have too much changes. You can increase 7, 8 and just play around. But remember, if you put it too much, it will be almost no changes, even just motion when I'm applied. So this is kind of adjustments in small increments on each. That also, when you do change, I will highly recommend change one variable at a time. Don't change 10, 20 because something happened. You don't know which variable what was affecting. The next motion is kind of very important, because if we're going to create some animation based on a ControlNet reference or a reference of the face, and we don't modify like a zoom or other things, this is what happened. You can see it's constantly zoom, constantly jumping, and the reason is why, because it does perform zoom in between those, remember, 2 frames that we rendered before in blending. But next time when ControlNet kick in on another frame, it says, hey, this is the size, so let's go back to this, and this is what will happen. It's make good effect if you create some special music video or want to have some other visual effect creating. It could be very interesting. But if you want consistency on a motion, that's probably not a good way to do. So be sure these motions for the, if you're using with ControlNet specifically, they are set to like 0 or nothing. And here's a different, that zoom, the sum of those properties work from 1 till 0 with the same like a zoom, for example. And you can increase 1.1 and it's going on different directions. So 1 is no zoom, increasing to 2 will zoom out, and other ways it's a zoom in, so 1 does not move. Here, however, it will going from 0 to 1. So they're a little bit different, and we're just going to set everything to 0, zoom to 1, so we don't need it any motions or other things in this case. Noise, we'll just leave it as default. And the noise, it's what Perlin noise will apply to make animations. You can have consistency, you can increase to create more details. How I said before, we'll just leave it as default right now in this area. Coherency was same, we'll want to touch any on the contrast or any other things. Anti-blur, this is ways between frames. Sometimes you notice kind of very blurry happen in animation. And here's the example. You see how this sharp and nice, this one first frame, watch what's happening. You see how it's become very blurry as we're zooming in. And this is mostly happen when you start zooming in, it's become more blurry and blurry. Because how it works, in this case, you probably want to go inside and anti-blur, increase the amount here. For this video, we don't need to do this because we don't use it, the zoom itself. But if you do some zoom in animations, I would recommend you to see where's the blur kind of occurred. And you can set, for example, on frame 10, increase to 0.4 and so on. So you can increase, actually right here should be column. And you can increase sharpness to avoid some of this blurriness what happened with your animation. Okay, so we have it anti-blur, and we don't worry about this at the moment. This is for 3D, and we're running in 2D mode. As I'm repeating what said before, 3D will add Z-axis, so we can move our cameras. But in this current station, our camera is stationary. We just have motions of the person, rotating head, and that is and will be in 2D positioning for the camera. Okay, the one last things I want to mention in a keyframes, it is maximum frames. Notice right here, it says 120 frames. If we do 12 frames per second, it will be equal to 10 seconds of animations. Then also it's meaning how many frames will be extracted from original video. You remember I showed before original video where rotate head, and this is much longer video. So if your video is longer, but you put it only so many frames, it will extract those first frames from the video, like right here. And you'll notice it will extract 120 frames and use them later as a reference for different ControlNet options that we set up. So for this test, we'll leave it as 120, but you can increase more if you need to create. I would recommend small trick if you do zoom in animations, create a little bit smaller frames because you will start having worse and worse blur effect. But after take last frame and based on this frame start render again, that will increase the quality of the sharpness. Okay, let's go next. We'll go to the prompt, and prompt, you'll notice we have again our key frames, frames where we want to do, and it's what we want to add. Because I'm not going to change stuff, I'm going to erase all other frames. Portrait of Cyberman, and we'll just put it the word that we created otherwise. You also can have it your positive prompts and negative prompts. For example, I can put it LED lights, so we will be sure they are right there, but we also don't want an NSFW or nude in the pictures. Well, nobody wants to see me that way, trust me. Okay, so next what we want to do, this is the instantiations. We look on this a little bit later, what it does. And in a ControlNet, this is where all magic will start happening. If you remember in extensions, we got in the settings and set up how many we want to do, and we set up 3 ControlNet. Right here we have it 5 because it does not relate it to this. Those 3 what we set up, it's will happening right here. We have it ControlNet, and you can see 1, 2, and 3 options. When we're going with DeForum, they pre-default set to 5. One thing I'll notice when you use this model, sometimes you may need restart. Let me show you what may happen. We'll see if it's happened here or not. If we're going and click enable one mode, you'll see how it's preloaded. And right here, we already have display our path for video or image we want to render. Few times when I did before, sometimes that path does not showing there. So in this case, it doesn't, it just UI does not refresh properly or something go wrong. Just reload it UI and try it again. Notice when you reloaded UI, if you made any other settings, you will lose those settings. So what you want to do after you create your settings, you want to probably go and save this DeForum settings. So next time when you open them as a default, or you can preload it. This way, when you reload it, your interface, you still save some of these elements. So be sure if you've done all this work, create your prompts, create navigation, zoom, animations before reload it, go ahead and save the file. Okay, so we are in a first model, and what I want to do, I want to go select the Canny model for this. They are first, and we're going to select also, sorry, it's preprocessor, and we'll select Canny for the processing. We are schedule 1, we leave it as default. You can change the weights depend what you're doing, and the weights can be changed between different ControlNets. So for example, you can switch from one ControlNet to another. Let me give you an example. If you have a figure with a face and you're going zoom out from portrait to the figure, you probably want to have it more weight originally set on the open pose face. And after this, on specific frames, you want just pull out and have it maybe open face, just itself. Okay, so right here we have our preprocessor resolution, and usually I want to have it the largest we're using, and we're using, remember, I want to create a wide screen. And this is what we're going, 768. We leave it as a default. And right here, we need to put it what we reference in. In this case, I will reference to, okay. I will reference to the video that we're going to use as original. I don't need any mask. And on the bottom, this is control mode. You want to balance it between two of them, more to the prompt or more to ControlNet. For me, I want more importance on ControlNet because I think I want consistency to support. You can use it more than one. So for example, if we're going to second, and let's go ahead, enable this as well. And notice what's happening right here. We don't have come up our stuff. So sometimes if you open enable and we don't have this path to our videos, I don't know why it's happening. I think it is still kind of erroring sometimes, because in this case right here we have our video path. So if it does not showing, sometimes UI just go berserk or crazy. Let's try see if it's up. Nope. And I don't want to reload it yet, so we'll just use the top 3 ways of displaying. So we'll go ahead, same. So we'll save same things, ControlNet, only right here preprocessor. I want to actually use it open pose face, and for the model we want to also use it open face. So we're using 2 models, model 1 as a canny and 3. The reason is canny will give me consistency on the background, what we're going to do, and open face give me consistency or emotion on the face that we're going to process. We leave it all schedules, everything same from frame 1, so I don't want to change in this case. And this is we set up ControlNet. So let's go now. We'll skip hybrid. We don't need to do anything there. We'll click on the output. And the output, I want to change this to 12 frames per second. And we leave it everything default. But before, let's verify it. We don't have it any soundtrack that we want added. We want to create video, so I don't click skip video creation. Okay, we leave it all this stuff. We don't need it. Create GIF. Upscale, it's fine. Interpolation, so we'll just leave it everything as default. We don't need to worry about this. We'll just have it 12 frames. Before, let's go to run. I just want to verify it. We have it our 25 frames. We could reduce to steps, or we can reduce to 20, make it a little bit faster, but I think with default here, want to be sure my width is set properly. Don't care about seed. Okay, next go to keyframe. And keyframe, as I said before, be sure the motion set properly. So we don't have any problem in this case. We have it our schedule set. So I think we all ready at this time. And all what we need to do, just go ahead and click generate. When we do generate at first time, it's maybe take longer. And the reason is why it takes longer. It is, let's go ahead to server, and I'll just go look on the server. You'll notice it will preloaded some models. Mine is already preloaded, so it starts jumping directly into creating the image itself. But in a case, if you first time doing after you restart your server, it's need to take all models and preloaded them as well. It's need to go inside and take all these frames, extract from your video. Your video will be only extract 120 frames. It's max frames. It does not will extract amount of frames. You have it how long your video. So be sure, again, you know how long is your video or how many frames of this video you want to use it. Okay, till it's still creating, we can see the frames created, and also it is created our frames, not as ControlNet 1. It's first ControlNet what we is using, and ControlNet 2. It's separating them because you technically can use it 2 different videos for that. So you can actually have it like one architectural video where you're putting architectural effect and applied, and second you can use it foreground for the actor or open pose of the person. We'll try to do this a little bit later to show you how you can combine 2 different effects, 2 different build background in one and foreground or actor in another ones. It probably will be another video, not in this video, due to the size and length of the video itself. And because we're going to do in another videos, I'll just let you know I will also creating a music video, how to create and synchronize. And this is good time for you to be sure you actually subscribe to the channel. Click on that notification button to know when those videos is released if you're interested in this technology. Okay, so here are a few examples that I tried and animated after this, and you can preview this. So this is again using ControlNet. Notice some flickering. We can rework a little bit better on this. It does affect what prompt you put at the seed number right here with the very high flickering. So it was adjusting to quite a bit noise adding. So we just want to see how it's happening. I try to create a female look, but my beard come out, and it's probably on this case could be overdone if I remove canning, because I still using to use canning and I used open face. If I use it just open face, then you will remove the beard. You can replace fully character, but canning was adding the beard effect. Also notice right here, you see those lines happening. It's when you increase your sharpening quite a bit. So that is kind of be careful with this as well. But I do like how it's create like line art, almost, preview. And here I create myself try as a Simpsons, Homer Simpson. Of course, it's very low consistency, but it was fun. And for some reason, I was creating the Marge hair on my head. This one with the problem with too many steps was skipping. The reason I brought just showing how clean it could be, like background and other elements. Again, if you're using open face or other effect. So overall, here's an example how we can use it, ControlNet. I'm going to work more with this to align a little bit more coherency, more consistency between images, and we'll look how we can take also the background image separately and implement on top of the character itself as well. And be sure you check the another video that upcoming about how you can integrate music, or how you can synchronize motion inside the video with the music if you want to create some video musics or some other effect. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think, if you like it, if you have additional tips, and have a great time to create.